everyone. I am Lisa Berkeley. I am Vice President of the DWMC. And as you can see, we have with us here today Alan Haffa and Kate Daniels, both of whom are running for County Supervisor of Monterey County, District 5. So welcome, Alan, and welcome, Kate. We have a pre-recorded interviews from the two of them that were done on December 2nd and December 3rd. And the way that we did this is that we had Josie Wilson, our DWMC board member and secretary, do ask the questions which were established by a committee in advance. And so then we had a coin flip, Josie and I did, to see who would be going first in our video presentation. So we've got this recording for you that we'll be sharing, and then afterwards there will be a live Q&A that you'll be able to ask each of the candidates. A little bit more housekeeping on that. The questions will need to be typed in the chat, so please feel free to do that and keep track of your questions as you go along.
This is the recorded interview with Alan Haffa, who's a candidate for supervisor in District 5. I'm Josie Wilson, and my sister DWMC board member is Lisa Berkeley. She'll be responsible for timekeeping and recording. We're going to begin with Alan introducing himself for 1 minute, and then I'll follow with 5 questions, and the candidate will have 4 minutes to answer each. Alan, please make your introductory remarks.
Hi, I really appreciate the chance to introduce myself to the DWMC. My name's Dr. Alan Haffa. I'm a first-generation college student who went on to earn a PhD, and I've dedicated my career to helping my students at MPC, where I'm a professor of English, achieve their dreams. I've been married to Dr. Arlene Haffa for 37 years, and we supported each other as we earned our PhDs, raised our children, Ben and Elizabeth, together, and both are graduates of Monterey High School. I served on the MPUSD board when my kids were at Monterey High. The school district was experiencing difficulty. I was appointed, later elected, and later chosen to be board president. I've served on the Monterey City Council for the last 12 years, elected 3 times. I also serve on regional and county boards and commissions, including AMBAG, the Central Coast Community Energy, which I was on when we established it, the former Fort Ord Reuse Authority, Monterey One, Community Human Services, and more. I would be proud to be supervisor for District 5. I will be an advocate for women and women's issues. And as the former chair of Monterey County Democratic Party, I worked closely with Democratic women on issues of concern to your members.
Thank you. In your own words, please define the role of a county supervisor. Why do you want to be District 5 supervisor?
So, in my view, leadership, elected leadership is first and foremost about community engagement. So the first role of a supervisor is to be engaged with and to work with stakeholders in the district and around the county. Second role of the supervisor is to provide leadership, direction, strategic planning, and vision. You do that by first establishing a budget. That's extremely important because we can't accomplish things in the county without funding those important things. That involves priority setting. And as a supervisor, I will bring together those 2 important roles of the supervisor by ensuring that our strategic planning is a planning process that fully engages all stakeholders in the community. That's something that, in my view, has been lacking in the past. Secondly, once we've established what our priorities are as a county, as a community, as a district, I will advocate for those priorities during the budget setting process. There's never enough money to do all of the good things that people want. You have to set priorities. And if you elect me, you'll be electing me to work with all of you, with all of the stakeholders, to identify those priorities. Another important role of the supervisor is oversight and accountability. Ultimately, the elected board of supervisors is responsible for everything that our county government does. As your supervisor, again, I will be active in providing that oversight. There's an issue right now involving our jail, very serious issues in our jail, and a need for oversight of our sheriff's department. I have been outspoken and public in my request for the county board to establish a community citizen oversight committee. That's the kind of leadership I will provide, and that's an important role of the supervisors, to provide accountability. Another aspect of accountability and an important role of an elected official is the evaluation of government leadership and management. Again, I will ensure that we work with stakeholders to have citizen and employee feedback considered as part of the evaluation process. Obviously, as an elected official, you work closely with government unelected leadership, but you are responsible for evaluating them. That's the most important thing we do, because ultimately supervisors don't do anything themselves. We take action collectively. We approve plans. We approve budgets. We approve contracts. But it's the staff that ultimately are responsible for implementing those plans. And that's where a good evaluation process and proper oversight comes in. So community engagement, accountability, and then also planning. It's an essential part of what we do is planning. In my view, we approved a update to our general plan in 2010. I think it's time to take a look at certain things, especially as it relates to zoning and affordable housing. Our general plan has enabled too many sort of large developments that are targeting those who have the most money and those who don't necessarily need housing. We need to be targeting in our plans and planning for housing for our workforce. So planning is another essential important role of the supervisor. And then the last thing I would say is what I call boardmanship or boardwomanship, if you will, which is how do you conduct yourself in a public forum? How do you engage with both the public, the staff, and your fellow electeds? I have a long record of good boardmanship. I went onto a board at the school district, MPUSD, which was not experiencing very good relations among board members, was not behaving at that time in a way that represented the district well. And
we're gonna have to. We've gone over the 4 minute. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm very sorry.
No
I
worries.
didn't see your finger, so
I'm sorry.
It's my fault, though. Thanks.
You're good. Do you want to finish your sentence, though? We'll give you the time.
Yeah, I'll just conclude. So, supervisors must provide accountability, engagement, boardsmanship, planning, and oversight.
Thank you. Thinking just about District 5, what do you consider the top 3 most pressing issues specific to this district? And why should these issues be prioritized over others?
So, from where I sit, workforce housing and affordable housing is the most pressing issue for District 5 and for the whole county. there are related issues like water and transportation. They're kind of all connected. But unless we can house our workforce, I don't think that we are going to be able to solve most of our other important issues. So that's the number one issue. It's something that I have provided leadership on at the city of Monterey. And we have, at Monterey, we have rezoned, upzoned our downtown Garden Road to try to make it easier to build affordable and workforce housing. We have identified city property that was underutilized to develop 100% affordable housing projects, and we're working on another one at this time. So that's the kind of vision and leadership on the issue of housing that I will bring to the Board of Supervisors. I think another very important issue I mentioned earlier for District 5 is the vacation rental issue. So we have, and I've heard from a lot of constituents in District 5 who feel like they're living next to a Motel 6. And that's not acceptable. When people, buy a home, they have a right, and that home is zoned residential. They have a right to expect to live in a residential community, not in a commercial district. And in the city of Monterey, we've addressed that issue. We've banned vacation rentals, and we have hired a consultant who monitors vacation rental websites, and it's been fairly effective. So we need to find a policy that works, not necessarily banning vacation rentals, but making sure that we don't have densification, that we don't have the kinds of problems with noise and with loud parties and that kind of thing. And so that would be a second issue I would identify. The third issue specific to District 5 that I would identify is our roads and transportation infrastructure. There are a number of problem points along Carmel Valley Road, for example, that need to be addressed for safety reasons. We also just have really poor road quality in the unincorporated county. In the city of Monterey, I supported 2 ballot measures, and we got over 70% of the public to support those ballot measures to improve our roads. So I will again bring the same attention to our poor road quality. I will be committed to improving our road quality and our infrastructure generally. The last issue I would say is emergency preparedness and fires, and we must address that as well.
Thank you. Okay, the third question, Alan. Thinking about the county as a whole, the role of supervisor requires you to represent and advocate for both District 5 and the needs of all residents and businesses throughout the county. What do you think are the larger issues the districts have in common? Which one is the most important, and why?
That's a great question. Again, I'm proud to have a record of experience working with our county and our region on issues, whether that be at the Fort Ord Reuse Authority or Central Coast Community Energy, Community Human Services, AMBAG, and Monterey One. I think that first of all, the roads, as I mentioned, and our infrastructure are of a concern across the whole county. So that's something that we have to address. I would say that housing affordability and workforce housing is an issue across the county. Right now, we have a lot of folks who live in Salinas, North County, and South County who work on the peninsula. And that's bad for them. It's bad for their families. It's bad for the environment, and it's bad for traffic. So for all of those reasons, we need to work as a county to build housing that people who work can afford near where they work. And I see that as both a District 5 issue, but also as a county-wide issue. The traffic situation on Highway 68, Highway 1, Carmel Valley Road, again, these are issues that affect the whole county, and they're interrelated. Part of that traffic, and you can just look at the traffic patterns. Where does the traffic begin in the morning? Where does it end in the afternoon? It's driven by our housing workforce imbalance. So, traffic and housing, and then of course water. We can't accomplish any of this without a reliable and affordable and environmentally sustainable water supply. We all know that water is an issue in District 5, in particular on the peninsula, but it's an issue countywide. In Castroville, they're having issues with seawater intrusion that ultimately will affect Salinas as well. It affects not only the hospitality industry, but also the ag industry. And it affects all of us in terms of our ability to build the kinds of homes and businesses that we want to build and live in. So those would be issues that I see as countywide. But there's really a last issue, and I think I have a minute left or so, and that has to do with the culture of the county. And in my view, I believe that the county board and the county culture needs to change. That we need to have a county that is more responsive to our residents, that is more inclusive in terms of inviting and involving people who aren't just the usual loud voices, but everyone. We need to find a way to do that. And in terms of transparency. So, we shouldn't need to find out a year after the fact that our county jail, for example, failed its accreditation report. That's something that is a basic human rights, and there are human rights and civil rights issues at stake here. And we need a policy on transparency. We need a policy on public information sharing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Which Board of Supervisor committees would you like to serve on, and why?
I would like to serve first and foremost on the housing. I believe that housing is something as I've said, I want to be a champion for the county, and I have been a champion for in the city of Monterey. Another committee that would be very important to me is the committee that homelessness, social services. I've served on community human services for the last 10 years, and we've made a lot of progress as an agency, and we've made a lot of progress, I think, as a county in the region at addressing homelessness. But that's the reason that I ran for city council to begin with, almost 12 years ago. The county basically controls a lot of resources that allow the nonprofits that address that issue. So that would be another committee that I would very much like to be a part of. And the Veterans Affairs is another committee that is, I think, very important. We live in a community that supports a lot of veterans, and that supports a lot of active military as well, who are a very important part of our community and our county. I think we have important work to do there in terms of improving services for veterans. So just off the top of my head, those would be some of the committees that I would be most interested in.
Great, thank you. Our last question. Please talk about a significant women's issue that you've already addressed in Monterey County. What did you do specifically that made it a sustainable difference, and what remains to be done?
So I think, first of all, I would say that I don't really differentiate between women's issues and issues in general. One of the things that I've learned is that women's issues or women's concerns tend to be concerns that matter to all of us. And where women's rights are concerned, all rights are concerned. But that being said, I think that the issue of bodily autonomy has kind of been forced upon us by the Supreme Court with the Dobbs decision. It's an extremely troubling decision. I am proud that as chair of the Democratic Party, when the Democratic women came to me, already wisely foreseeing that this could become a problem, and asked our committee to include a statement by all candidates who want our endorsement must commit to unambiguously supporting a woman's right to choose. And we did that. And as a county supervisor, I will do whatever I can to ensure women's access to reproductive rights in terms of making sure that those services are funded. But also the rights of all people in terms of their bodily autonomy. So we're seeing transgender folks and gay folks and their marriages. All of those civil rights issues are at risk. And I will be a supervisor who is very outspoken in support of bodily autonomy. Childcare is really so important. As a working parent going to college with a wife who was working and going to college, trying to raise our two young kids, we know how important childcare is. It limits women's choices in terms of the kind of work they would want to do or where and when they would want to work. So I was disappointed that Proposition 1 failed at the ballot box a few years ago, but I will do what I can to support childcare and helping people to be able to have good, affordable choices. If that means supporting another ballot measure, just as I supported Prop 1, I will support that as well. I think housing is a human rights issue. It's an economic issue. It's an environmental issue, but it is also, because so many women bear so much responsibility for their families, it is a women's issue. So, housing and housing affordability, those are issues I've done a lot of work on and will continue to do a lot of work on. Homeless women is an absolute tragedy. Again, I told you I ran for council in 2012 because of the homeless issue becoming really aware of it. That happened when a female student showed up to my class, wet, with wet paper. And I've committed then, I'm still committed now, and I've done a lot to try to improve services for homeless people in general, but homeless women in particular. As a council member and as a CHS board member, Casa de Noche Buena and Schumann Heart House were part of our vision to address that. So those are just a few issues, and I would look to work with the Democratic Women's Club on whatever other issues are important to you.
Thank you so much, Alan. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness of your responses.
Thank you, Josie.
Okay, so we are going to end with your closing statement. You'll have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. So first of all, again, I just want to thank the Democratic women for giving me this opportunity, and Josie and Lisa for organizing such a well-designed interview process. I would be honored to have your endorsement. I've been involved in the Democratic Party, actively involved for over a decade as party chair, as a delegate to the Democratic National Convention, not once but twice, as the executive board member to our state party, and as a delegate to our state party. In all of those roles, I have done my best to represent the people of Monterey County and the women of Monterey County, and to work with you. I was proud to be a local organizer and whip for Kimberly Ellis, who ran, sadly, unsuccessfully for state party chair. I've worked to help elect many, many women. Yuri Anderson and Natalia Molina at MPC, Mary Adams, Jane Parker, Wendy Root Askew, at the county board. I've also supported your member, Regina Gage, in both of her runs for county board. I supported Libby Downey, Nancy Selfridge, Kim Barber, other women for Monterey City Council. And I've shared with all of them my guide for how to get elected locally. I've endorsed them. I've given them money. I've gone canvassing for them. So anyway, thank you very much. I really appreciate the work that your committee does to help Democrats throughout our county.
They're not about one.
Excellent. Thank you,
Susan.
Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Interview with Kate Daniels, who's a candidate for supervisor in District 5. I'm Josie Wilson, and my sister DWMC board member is Lisa Berkeley. She'll be responsible for timekeeping and recording. We're going to begin with Kate introducing herself for 1 minute. Then I'll follow with 5 questions, and the candidate will have 4 minutes to answer each. Kate, please make your introductory remarks.
Thank you, Josie, and thank you to all of the DWMC for providing this opportunity for me to come and introduce myself to all of you and to, make this pitch for your endorsement. I was born and raised in Monterey County. I am a lifelong Democrat. I have been voting in every election since I turned 18, which was a very exciting election for me because it was the first time I could remember that a Democrat was elected president in the United States of America. I have been a member of the Democratic Women of Monterey County for many years now, and I am fully committed to the vision of this organization, which is to elect and empower women and their allies into office. We have a real opportunity here in Monterey County to elect another woman to the Board of Supervisors, and I hope that you all will support me in that effort to ensure that when Mary Adams retires, we replace Mary Adams with another woman on the Monterey County Board of Supervisors. So thank you all.
In your own words, please define the role of a county supervisor. Why do you want to be the District 5 supervisor?
Well, thank you so much, Josie, for that question. The Monterey County Board of Supervisors is really the key legislative body for all of Monterey County. Monterey County is made up of incorporated and unincorporated jurisdictions. If you live in one of the unincorporated jurisdictions, your supervisor is your key ally in navigating Monterey County government. It is the person that you go to if you have any challenges with any of the agencies or departments that fall under the Monterey County government umbrella. If you live in an incorporated portion of District 5, which would be the cities of Monterey, Pacific Grove, and the city of Carmel, additionally, you have a mayor, a city council, and, for example, very critical department, a public works department that you also have at your disposal. But Monterey County Board of Supervisors are responsible for all of the unincorporated roadways, as well as all of the services that filter down from the state of California and from the federal government to all of Monterey County, whether or not that's the incorporated jurisdictions or the unincorporated jurisdictions. So that includes environmental health, that includes the Department of Social Services, that includes Natividad Hospital. So the supervisor is a critical player in understanding what her district is experiencing, what her district's needs are, and then advocating for her district and as a whole. I think it's really important to add, though, that we have districts for electoral purposes, but a supervisor is also a member of the County Board of Supervisors that is responsible for the entire Monterey County. I like to think of a supervisor as being part of the team that ensures not just her district, but the entire county's needs are getting met. This is where, when we're talking about big issues like our water supply, tackling our housing crisis, dealing with wildfire preparedness, dealing with protecting ourselves when we have atmospheric rivers and consequential flooding. These are county-wide problems that a supervisor needs to be able to work with the team of 5, to ensure that as a county, we're in the best position possible as we move forward into the future. Another key component of a supervisor that I'm not certain we've seen the type of leadership in the past that is as doing as much as is possible is she is responsible for holding relationships, for maintaining relationships with our federal government and our state government to ensure as many services and funding is filtering down from those entities into Monterey County to ensure that we are in the best position possible to move forward into the future. So she's a leader, she's a team player, she's a fundraiser, and she is your key liaison in District 5 to ensure that when you have challenges, those challenges are being met and addressed to the fullest extent possible. Thank you.
Thinking just about District 5, what do you consider the top 3 most pressing issues specific to this district? Why should these issues be prioritized over others?
Thank you, Josie. I believe the top 3 issues would be our housing supply, our water supply, and preparing ourselves for impending climate disasters, for lack of a better word. In terms of housing, I have had the experience of working with Gathering for Women, where I sat on the board and also served as the interim executive director, and really saw firsthand the impacts the high cost of housing is having on our community. At Gathering for Women, we had upwards of 500 women on the Monterey Peninsula who are living in their cars, or worse than that, unsheltered and under the elements. And these are women that have been community members, part of our community for decades, but it's one medical bill or a divorce that has caused them to lose their housing and find themselves living in the situation that I just described. You're all familiar with the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District and the situation where we have approximately 10,000 students in our school district, and 2,000 of those students qualify as homeless. This is not sustainable, it's unethical, and it's something that requires our devoted attention to resolve the crisis. The way that we do that is by building units. And so that is first and foremost. In order to build units on the Monterey Peninsula, we need a sustainable water supply. When I say sustainable water supply, I'm talking about the type of water supply that would allow for the State Water Resources Control Board to determine that we can lift the cease and desist order that we have been under since 1995. Until we lift the cease and desist order, we cannot have any changes in use at any particular location. We can't take opportunities that state legislation is providing for us to move from commercial zoning to a residential zoning, to make that change in use. We can't increase density until that cease and desist order is lifted. So for that reason, that is number 2 for me. And number 3 is really wildfire preparedness and disaster preparedness. For the last decade or so, we have seen a pattern that is as clear as possible, telling us that we're going to have periods of drought followed by periods of heavy rainfall, atmospheric rivers, which lead to flooding. During those periods of drought, the wildfire risk is at an all-time high. So what we need to be doing at the Board of Supervisors is ensuring that as a county, we are taking every advantage we have to harden our homes, to prepare our homes for this reality. And as a supervisor, I will take a leadership role in doing everything we can, which includes things like undergrounding our utilities, doing everything we can to ensure that what is inevitably coming, we are in the best position to be prepared for. Thank you.
Thinking about the county as a whole, the role of supervisor requires that you represent and advocate for both District 5 and the needs of all residents and businesses throughout the county. What do you think are the larger issues the districts have in common, and which one is the most important and why?
I think the largest issue that the districts have in common is the one I've been talking about, which is housing. When I've been on the campaign trail, I have heard from, I think the thing I hear about the most is concerns about interfacing with county government and the delays that we experience. And then I hear the same thing, actually, delays at hospitals, delays in providing services at the county level or throughout Monterey County. And I think that is related to the cost of living, which is not helping the ability for our county government, our public agencies, and our private sector to be able to maintain a workforce that is necessary for the full functioning of these entities. And so housing is most important. And I think that is a countywide problem because, for example, our big industry on the Monterey Peninsula in District 5 is hospitality. Hospitality relies on a workforce that is commuting long hours just to get long distances, sometimes an hour or more, to get to their places of business. That's not a sustainable model. It creates traffic, it's not good for the environment, and it's not just hospitality. If you go to our public safety sector, our firefighters, our police officers, they too are commuting long distances to work on the Monterey Peninsula. Same thing for our educational institutions, our teachers, healthcare institutions, our medical professionals. Everybody is commuting long distances to come and work in District 5. A better solution for our community, for that workforce, and for the environment is that people once again have the opportunity to live where they work. I grew up here, born and raised on the Monterey Peninsula, and know that in my lifetime, this is a major shift. When I was growing up, my teachers in the district lived in the district. Our police officers in the district lived in the district. Folks who worked in hospitality lived in the district. Folks who worked in our shopping centers, in every sector, our essential workers, our supermarkets, lived in the district. I believe this is possible. One of the things that I do in my work life right now is I do sit on the Monterey County Planning Commission. We are responsible for the county housing element. And I believe the housing element is an opportunity for us all to work together throughout District 5 to identify where we can appropriately place new units. The places where we have opportunity include in our shopping districts where we can increase some density, where we can move some office spaces into apartments, where we can move other commercial zoned areas into residential. I think this is something that can be achieved. I'm not a fan of green belts and green fields, any opportunity where there's open space, creating sprawl. That is a lazy tactic, but I think that we can create housing at various opportunities around our commercial districts that would make a huge difference. I'm also very supportive of the opportunity for folks to create units at their own homes through ADUs. And so that's one. And that would actually, I'll wrap this section up by saying that helps the entire county, because other districts in Monterey County are carrying the housing burden for our workforce on the Monterey Peninsula.
Thank you, Kate. Okay, our fourth question. Which Board of Supervisors committees would you like to serve on and why?
Very good question. So I vacillate. Sometimes I think I am not going to get into that dogfight, and I am going to go wherever they place me, because every single committee that is part of Monterey County government is critical. It's there for a reason. I know that there was a period of time a couple years ago where they did sort of expunge some of the committees that maybe had outlived their purpose. But there isn't a committee that I wouldn't be happy to sit on, whether that's Monterey Salinas Transit. I want to see our transit opportunities, and all the opportunities that exist outside of car travel to increase, whether that's the AMBAG, the Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments. I mean, that is the entity, the thing that I was just talking about, the housing element that determined where in the district we can create more housing opportunities, where it should go. Those are critical conversations. I would love to sit on the budget committee. I think that the budget is a huge untapped opportunity to really have a supervisor roll up their sleeves and truly understand the streams of money that come in from the state, the streams of money that come in from the federal government, the money that is generated by the transient occupancy tax, which is then discretionary. How are we using this money, and how can we do it better to really move from this exercise that supervisors engage in every year over the course of several months to one where on the budget committee we roll up our sleeves and think, is there opportunities that are being missed, to really think about how we're spending money and to ensure that ultimately we're budgeting our values. LAFCO is in the news right now. LAFCO is huge because when I read about the annexations and what is happening in the Salinas Valley, I understand the frustration. I understand that these RENA goals have been issued to the county, and we're being told we need to build more housing, and that the easiest solution would be to expand the boundaries of our urban zones and expand into some of our agricultural farmland to build that housing. But I also think that the mission and the mandate of LAFCO is absolutely critical for the future sustainability of Monterey County. And that's our agricultural industry. That industry is critical. It is really an amazing history that we hold in Monterey County, where we have been this leading agricultural producer for generations now. And so as a result, we've really protected the open space in our county in a way that you don't see replicated really anywhere else in California, in other valleys, in other regions. So LAFCO plays a critical role in ensuring that the growth is truly smart and is protecting the very industry that our economy relies on. There are many other committees. The Parks Committee, I mean, that holds a special place in my heart because I love our county parks, and I see a huge untapped opportunity at each and every one of them. I just, I'm going to go where if I have the privilege of winning this race, I'm going to go where they place me, because each and every one, I think, really could benefit from leadership and my commitment to ensuring that our county is and remains one of the best places that exist on earth. Thank you.
All right, we're at our last question, Kate. Please talk about a significant women's issue that you've already addressed in Monterey County. What did you do specifically that made a sustainable difference, and what remains to be done?
Well, that's a good one. That is a really good one. The one that comes to mind right now, and it's top of mind because I was thanking an organization in San Luis Obispo this morning for an endorsement in my campaign, and it's an organization that supports women who break the glass ceiling. You know, it's called the Shack Pack. And I think in Monterey County, since I've been back, I was born and raised here, went away to college, came back in 2005 after some time in the workforce and living in other parts of the country. And the single biggest contribution I have made started with teaching at Monterey Peninsula College in the Gender and Women's Studies department, and having the opportunity to reach so many students and provide that opportunity to engage these young people, these young minds, with gender and women's issues. And that has translated into, when I left Monterey Peninsula College to join Mary Adams' campaign and to help her win her election in 2016, to working in the political realm. And my contribution in this area, in women in leadership, has been ensuring that we have, at minimum, 30% on the Monterey County Board of Supervisors of women. And it would be wonderful to see that grow to even more than at minimum 30%. But with Mary joining Jane, that led to a major transformation on the Monterey County Board of Supervisors. And then when Jane retired, I worked a lot as a volunteer on Wendy Root Askew's campaign, because it was critical to me that we retain those two seats occupied by women. And then when Tina Nieto had made the decision to run for sheriff, I volunteered on her campaign because I wanted to see the difference a woman in leadership in that position would make. When Dawn Addis decided to run for assembly, Monterey County has never before Dawn been represented by a woman in the assembly. This was a first. This was a huge transformation for us, and the benefits in Sacramento have been felt by all of us. And so my contribution, and what still needs to continue to happen, is we need to ensure that women are in leadership. What happens when we elect good leaders? When we elect good leaders, I think there's a transformation in terms of the issues that we discuss at the board level, and not just by the women, by women and men on the Board of Supervisors. I believe women are forward-thinking, looking into the future, and analyzing every decision they make in terms of what the potential future impacts may be. And that's what we need. We need forward-thinking, caring, loving women with heart to help lead us into the next generation. So I think that's my biggest contribution. It's one we need to continue to work on at the levels of school boards, city councils, all of our special districts. We need to see women in leadership positions.
Thank you so much for your really thoughtful responses, Kate. We'll end with your closing statement. You'll have 1 minute.
1 minute. Okay. So, in closing, I really hope to earn the support of the Democratic women of Monterey County in this campaign and to move forward throughout the rest of this race with your endorsement and your support. Our vision, our values, the work we've been working on in the past and what needs to happen in the future is all very much aligned. This is not easy to run for Monterey County Supervisor. This has been, one of the more difficult choices I've had to make as a woman. Because, of course, when you choose to run for office, all of the other obligations we carry don't just disappear. I still work my day job. I'm raising a family. I'm running a household. I'm caring for my parents. I have all sorts of responsibilities that I know many of us hold. And so to be able to move forward with your support and that energy is something I really hope to be able to do. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Alan, for your incredible responses. We're so grateful to have been able to have shared that video with you. We are now going to move to the live Q&A section. And so as we mentioned, for housekeeping, we will be having questions typed in the chat. So please type your questions in the chat, and we will, hold on one second. Where did Alan go? There you are, Alan. Okay. We will be having those questions asked out loud. I've actually already received one question, and it is, how will you improve the roads in unincorporated District 5? And if you can please be very specific on how you will be doing that.
Lisa, would you like me to go first?
Sure, Kate.
Okay. So unincorporated District 5, well, first of all, hi, everyone. This is very cool. Thank you, DWMC, for having us and for that video presentation. What I would say about roads in unincorporated District 5, so we have two big funding mechanisms that have passed in recent years. One came from the state. It's called SB1, and it provides an additional tax that funnels into the state, into the county, and provides extra dollars for our roads and for maintaining our roads. And then we also have Measure X funding, which passed, I believe, in the 2016 election, which also is extra money funneling into Monterey County for our roads. This is important because the way in which we fund our roads is a gas tax that's been reduced over many, many years as our cars have become more efficient, as people have moved to electric cars. So the amount of money that we have to service our roads and to maintain our roads has decreased. So I'm grateful for those two electoral avenues that were passed and that do provide some opportunity, but it's still not enough. And I think this is where a good supervisor and a forward-thinking supervisor is necessary. And I'll give you a really good example. We had, if you live in the Carmel Valley area, a big septic to sewer project that happened. And the Carmel Valley Road for a long period of time was opened up, and we put in a sewer line, and they closed it back up, and then they repaved where they just did the middle lane for the sewer line. They just repaved that. And just last week, they finished the project by restriping it and painting it. All of the original road is still in the horrible condition that it was in before. They painted over a terrible road. And so I looked into it and asked the county, why didn't the project cover the cost to repave Carmel Valley Road? And in the conditions in the project, what the county had stated to the applicant was they needed to restore the road to its current condition or better. And who's going to choose better? And so what we got was a road that was already bad, restored to an already bad level. So I'd like to bring the kind of leadership that ensures that the county is working with applicants and requiring that when you open up a road, you restore it to a new road condition. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Alan, would you like to respond?
Yeah, so the county's assessment of its road quality shows that our roads are on the verge of failing. Basically, you rate roads in terms of pavement index from 0, which would be a completely failed road, to 100, which would be a perfect road, brand new road. And the quality of the roads was, I think, something like 47, if I'm remembering correctly. So in Monterey, 10 years ago, our roads were similarly bad and our pavement index was similarly bad. We passed a half-cent sales tax, a 4-year sales tax, and then after those 4 years, the public extended it for another 7 years. Basically, we're raising about $10 to $12 million a year from that tax. So we need, I do agree with Kate, we need more money than the current funding sources are providing. It's great we have SB1 and Measure X, and they are helping, but we've got a long ways to go. So I would work with stakeholders to identify another source of funding. I don't necessarily want to commit to what that source would be because I think you have to do a lot of outreach to make sure that you gain public support for whatever that funding source might be. But we need more money. I was surprised when I looked at the county budget how little there actually is for road maintenance and infrastructure. Again, in comparison to the city of Monterey, which is much smaller, we have a lot fewer roads, and yet we have, I would say, per road mile, significantly more money. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. So I'm seeing a lot of questions coming in. So I'm going to have us set a time limit of 2 minutes per question. And so moving on to that, the next question that I see here actually is from Mike Gibbs, and it's with the decline of academic proficiency scores, and you're concerned about the quality of education being provided in Monterey County. And Alan, since Kate went first last time, why don't you go ahead and take this first?
Well, I would say, first of all, as a former school board member, I'm aware of proficiency scores. I have some concerns about whether they accurately reflect the quality of learning that's going on in school. I think I would caution people not to simply look at some kind of a proficiency score and how kids are doing on standardized tests. I don't believe it's the best way to assess teaching and learning. That being said, of course, education is extremely important. It doesn't really fall directly within the purview of the county board. And so I think that's also something that that needs to be said here. But I am concerned, but I'm not concerned necessarily so much about those proficiency scores. I'm more concerned about the sort of politicization where we're seeing school boards being pressured to sort of roll back progressive policies on things like transgender and those kinds of issues. That's what concerns me about what I'm seeing in our schools, not so much the proficiency scores.
Thank you, Alan. Kate, would you like to respond to the same question?
Yeah, I want to start by saying the Board of Supervisors has no oversight over the Monterey County Office of Education. So I don't want to spend too much time on this question since there are so many. But I would say if children are fed and they're housed and teachers have places to live, our proficiency scores will probably go up.
Okay. Then let's move on to the next question, which says, this is from Chris Walton, and she says, I would like to ask each candidate to tell us why they are uniquely qualified to be the District 5 supervisor. What makes you the better candidate to represent us? And since we already heard some of that introduction, I'm going to keep this to a 1-minute response. Kate, do you want to go first?
Sure, I would be happy to. So a lot of supervisors in the past have been Monterey County Planning Commissioners before they became a supervisor. But I don't know anyone who has also been a chief of staff to a county supervisor, who's worked in the nonprofit realm in Monterey County, dealing with one of the biggest challenges we've faced, which is our homelessness crisis. And I don't know any who also worked for a state legislator in the role that I have played with Senator John Laird. So I find myself uniquely qualified. It doesn't make me an insider, all of the different endorsements that I have received, but it means folks are excited and they're willing to work with me, and they share this vision for Monterey County that more is possible. So that is, I think, what makes me the best candidate for this seat.
Okay, thank you. Alan, your turn.
So first I would say we have two qualified Democrats. I think what separates me is experience, and I do believe experience, elected office experience matters. I have 15 years of elected office experience. I've been elected 4 times. I have a record that people can look at to judge whether or not I have followed through on my promises. And I will be an independent voice that represents all of our stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Okay, terrific. And Laura Abhider has got 2 questions, one for Kate and one for Alan. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll start with you, Kate, because I see that first in the chat. He said, Alan Haffa shares his concerns about oversight of the sheriff jail. How do you see this situation and how to solve it?
Thank you, Laura. Absolutely. So oversight is, I think, very important for any agency. And when you have a situation like the Monterey County Jail, which has faced so many challenges that have harmed so many people, it is a very serious situation. One concern that I do have is having, and I think this is the sticking point, is an oversight committee coming out of the sheriff's budget. The question that comes up for me is, here we have our very first female sheriff. I've sat through several budget cycles where that budget has been pretty notorious to balance, and sheriffs come forward and ask for more money every single year. And instead, here I think we've got a fiscally responsible sheriff who's being asked to cut her budget. So I think we need to figure out a way to fund the oversight committee so it can happen and be established and provide, I think, the critical role that oversight would play in the Monterey County Sheriff's Department.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Also now for Alan, one question for you from Laura, and the question is, and you'll have 1 minute to respond. We are hearing from our Democratic Party that the threat of democracy is local. It's happening at the school board and the city council level. What needs to happen to stop these attacks on local policies, voter rights, curriculums, etc.?
Well, that's a great question. I don't think it's really uniquely a supervisor's responsibility. It's really our collective responsibility and the responsibility of our Democratic clubs and Democratic Party to recruit good people to run for school boards and for city council, and then once they're elected, to support them. I think it's important for the folks in those roles to communicate with all of us and with their stakeholders to let them know when there are issues or when there is disruption of their meetings so we can be there to support them. Thank you very much.
Terrific. Thank you. This question now comes from Lauren Latendra, and the question is, what do you plan to do to provide an alternative, reliable water source to replace pumping from the Carmel River? And I'm assuming it's looking for a very specific answer. So, Alan, do you want to go first?
Sure. So, first of all, we need to make sure that the expansion of Monterey 1, happens. It's moving forward. It looks very promising. Secondly, we need to explore all other alternative recycling sources of water. And third, we need to work with partners in Castroville, Marina, Salinas, the Water District, Monterey 1, to look at a long-term solution, a regional solution. It's unfortunate the regional water solution failed over a decade ago, but I do believe there's a new opportunity to renew those efforts, and I will provide leadership on that.
Okay, thank you. Kate, your turn. 1 minute.
So thank you, Lauren, for that question. I think we share a real deep concern for the Carmel River and the health and well-being of the watershed, which is what prompted the cease and desist order in the first place. Was the overpumping of the Carmel River. When I was growing up, just aside, we were pumping 15,000 acre feet a year from the Carmel River. And fortunately now, with the cease and desist order, we've reduced that pumping level to 3,376 acre feet per year. But with that reduction, we're still under the cease and desist order. And so we need to bring the supply up in order for the State Water Resources Control Board to lift the cease and desist order. So we need a replacement water supply. Pure Water Monterey is a wonderful project, and Pure Water Monterey expansion is underway, and that will bring us to enough water to lift the CDO, but will it be considered sustainable by the State Water Resources Control Board? I think with the current source waters that are being allocated to that project, we need to find new source waters. And we need to investigate truly sustainable alternatives, such as desalting water, that can actually provide the kind of supply that will lift the cease and desist order.
Thank you, Kate. Okay, moving on to the next question from Gail Morton. The question is, has the sales tax in the county reached the allowable limit? Mr. Haffa is suggesting an increase for road repairs. Is this a feasible funding source? I think we started with Alan on the last question, so Kate, we'll start with you on this question. You have a minute.
Well, Gail, it's a good question, but I'm not sure sales tax, the way in which the road fund exists, and this is something I would have to dig into as supervisor, but I'm not sure there's a correlation of sales tax and road fund money. The road fund comes directly from the sales tax, from the gas tax, and then the two sources that we talked about, SB1 and Measure X. And then secondly, we do have opportunities to take discretionary funding and move that into the road fund if need be. And the county has moved TOT into that bucket before in order to supplement the road tax. And so what I think I'd rather look at is I would rather look at really digging into the transient occupancy tax, which is one of our discretionary buckets, and find out where it's going, because the intention of transient occupancy tax is to collect money from visitors to mitigate the impacts of things like cars on the road. And so if the TOT is not going to what it was intended to go toward, which is, again, mitigating the impacts of visitors on the road, then we need to reallocate and figure out what's going on. Thank you.
Terrific, Kate. Thank you. Alan?
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I believe that there is still room if the county wanted to increase sales tax. I'm not necessarily advocating for that. I think we need to have a conversation with all our stakeholders to decide if that's the right way to fund this. I think another possible way would be to look at vehicle registration fees or vehicle miles traveled as another possible revenue source. But whatever we do, we need to make sure that we do a lot of, resident and stakeholder outreach, because we need the public support. In my experience, people support revenue increases when they see a direct benefit to themselves, and I think that improved roads would be such an issue. But thank you for the question.
Terrific. Thank you. So this next question comes from Zoe Carter, and this time, Alan, we'll start with you. And again, it'll be a minute for each of you to respond. We talk about supporting workforce housing. Real building in District 5 is still several years away from being started and even further from being completed. How do you suggest we work towards the housing crisis in the near future to make a real dent?
Thanks for the question, Zoe. I think first and foremost, we need to make sure that we keep people in their homes. Like one of the best ways to fight homelessness is to help people stay in their homes. So in the city of Monterey, as you know, we initiated, even before the county did, a rental assistance program. I'm not sure if the county still has a rental assistance program, but I would support it if it does, and I would seek to augment it. So I think that's one thing. I think we can also help people give assistance to folks who are evicted through no fault of their own to help find new housing. So those would be two things that I would look at to try to address the immediate issue of our housing insufficiency.
Thank you. Kate, we turn to you.
Thank you, Zoe, for that question. And as a planning commissioner, I'm going to say what we need to do is really roll up our sleeves and start planning now for the housing for when the water supply is available and will allow for us to build. So how do we do that? As a planning commissioner, we've been working on the housing element at the county level, identifying locations in unincorporated Monterey County where we can increase density. What that looks like for me is really creative planning and doing the legwork now. So when we can build, we're ready to build. And so there's certain rezoning as part of the housing element, which will allow unused commercial space to be converted to rental housing or to apartment housing. Looking at working with our school districts to find out where opportunities exist on unincorporated Monterey County school district lands where teacher housing could be built. Working with developers who are interested in projects that they're bringing to our communities, such as grocery stores, and finding out how they can incorporate housing opportunities into those new projects. These are all conversations that I've had and that I'm having on a regular basis with various entities in unincorporated Monterey County who are interested in doing the legwork now, so when the possibilities are available, we can move forward as quickly as possible.
Terrific. Thank you, Kate. So, Kate, this next question will start with you because we just started with Ellen. So if we can, this question goes to Mike, from Mike Gibbs, and it says, do you support California SB 423 as it regards to housing? Kate, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so I believe SB 423 was the extension of SB 35. And it creates a pathway for building housing. I'm really concerned about one element of 423 when it comes to the coastal zone. And I can expressly state for you that in unincorporated Monterey County, when we have had housing projects that rely on our inclusionary housing ordinance and states things like, you can build this development, but 20% of the housing in that development needs to be affordable. What we've had over and over and over again are developers who come in and build projects and build housing that is so expensive so they can afford the units that they need to build that are affordable. Basically, to make the affordable units pencil out, the housing that's been brought into our communities has been housing that nobody in our communities can afford. And as a result, it's driven up the cost of housing in all the surrounding areas around those developments. So I see SB 423, what it did do was it expanded SB 35 into the coastal zone. And I do have concerns about it leading to larger developments on the coast that actually harm more than they hurt. But there are other elements of SB 423 that I do support.
Terrific. Thank you, Kate. Alan, please go ahead and answer. And if you need a little bit more than a minute, feel free.
So again, we don't have jurisdiction as supervisors over a state bill like SB 423, but I will say this, that the housing crisis we're experiencing here is a statewide crisis, And it's a crisis that has been created by local jurisdictions, in too many cases, blocking new housing and blocking affordable housing in particular. And I think that's especially true in a lot of our coastal communities. And so I would support more I have supported housing in the coastal community of Monterey. I would support more housing in all of our areas, because otherwise all of the problems Kate and I were speaking about will continue to exist. We shouldn't be outsourcing our workforce housing to Salinas, South County, and North County. Those coastal communities need to build housing for their workforce and for their families.
Okay. All right, thank you. So I see Mary Williams has asked the question, which you both have already agreed to it. She says, will you be signing the no fossil fuel money pledge? Taking the pledge means that a politician or candidate's campaign will adopt a policy to not knowingly accept any contributions over $200 from the PACs, lobbyists, or SEC-named executives of fossil fuel companies whose primary business is the extension, processing, distribution, or sale of oil, gas, or coal. And then she has the link to it. And so you both have agreed to sign it. If we could have maybe 1 minute from each of you of why you think this is important for Monterey County. And I believe we started that last question with Kate. So Alan, let's start with you. Thank you. 1 minute.
So I supported Measure Z, was one of just a handful of elected officials who did so. To me, fossil fuels are overheating our climate and driving climate change, and we're seeing those effects locally in terms of fires, serious storms, and ocean level rise. So we need to change the way we live and the way we commute and transport ourselves, heat our homes, all of that. So yes, I am proud to sign that pledge, and as a member of the California Democratic Party's Environmental Caucus, I have supported that pledge.
Okay, thank you. Kate.
So absolutely, fossil fuels, pharmaceuticals, big developers, I don't think they have any business in any of our campaigns. And so no problem signing the pledge and upholding what it stands for. But with Measure Z being struck down in the courts, I believe we really need to focus on that industry in southern Monterey County is a petroleum-based product industry. It's the oil and gas that's going toward all the plastic bottles that still proliferate throughout our county and throughout our communities. We have to move away from using these products in our daily lives on a much larger scale than we have so far. So that's step number one. And also, I think looking forward toward economic development, we have to create opportunities in Monterey County for our local Monterey County workforce to have good paying jobs, bring industries here with good paying jobs, train our current workforce for those jobs so they don't have to rely on jobs like the ones in the oil and gas industry.
Okay, thank you very much, Kate. So we have 5 minutes left. And so I would like just to have closing comments from both of you. Alan, would you like to go first?
Yeah, thank you very much. So I really want to just express my appreciation. I think that the Democratic Women has put together a really fair and issue-based process, and I'm appreciative. I would love your support. I have always supported women. I am a proud feminist. My wife is an amazing woman leader, the chair of the local ACLU and Senate president at CSUMB. She's a brilliant scientist, the most intelligent person I know, and she's the reason I'm running. She said, Alan, you have to run. You're the most qualified candidate, and I believe you can make a difference. I have supported many women in politics, and I've done the best that I can to help elect women. I've done the best that I can to represent the issues that are of concern to this club. And if I am so fortunate as to have your support, I will work closely with you to move Monterey forward in a way that addresses all of the issues we've talked about today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Right, Kate, we're going to bring you back and ask you the same thing. Please share with us your closing statement.
Well, thank you, Lisa, and thank you to everyone here that is part of the Democratic Women of Monterey County. The Democratic Women of Monterey County have been a part of my life since Mary Adams ran for office, and I became an active member of this club. I served as president of this club for 2 years, and I think I can comfortably say it was 2 years that this club became more inclusive, more progressive, more feminist, more keyed into the really serious issues facing our democracy than it had been before. It was a great time for me, and it was a great, I think, growth period for our club. I would be honored to be able to move forward with your support and to bring the vision that we have in this organization forward into Monterey County, to bring the values that we share to the Board of Supervisors. I am running for this office because there is a need for fresh, new leadership on the Monterey County Board of Supervisors, to bring our vision there and to move Monterey County forward. My tagline is "More is possible," because it is really true. There's so much we can accomplish together, but I've got to get there first. So I hope you'll join me. I hope you'll support me in this endorsement process, and together, I just believe there's so much that we can do. So thank you all so much for your support in the past, now, and hopefully in the future.
All right, Kate, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, Alan, for being with us. We will be posting the video that we shared earlier on the DWMC website for anybody to rewatch or have further questions answered. And of course, you can reach out to each of the candidates on their respective website, which is also can be found on the DWMC website as well. Lastly, you can volunteer for each of their campaigns also by reaching out to them. And what else can I share? Oh, most importantly, the endorsement is received from our members, and you will be getting a ballot at the end of December, and we will be announcing who the DWMC membership has chosen to endorse by January 17th, I believe it is. So we look forward to hearing your all votes. Be on the lookout for the ballot. And thank you again, Kate and Alan, for joining us. Be well, everybody. Happy holidays. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.